Life is suffering, but Nietzsche says that's good. What if I told you that everything you're trying to escape from pain, discomfort, anxiety, failure, loneliness is not only unavoidable, but necessary for your greatness? That it's not a flaw in the system, but the very engine of your evolution? That instead of running from suffering, we are meant to lean into it? That's not some motivational fluff. We're going straight into the abyss with Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher who stared suffering in the face and said, "Yes, let me paint you a scene. You wake up feeling hollow. Not depressed exactly, but like life has lost its flavor. You go through the motions, scroll, eat, work, repeat. You're fine, but you're not alive." And here's the thing, we've all been sold this beautiful lie that the purpose of life is to be comfortable, that success means eliminating suffering. But if that were true, why does comfort so often lead to emptiness? Why do we feel most alive not when things are easy, but when we're tested, broken down, and forced to rebuild? Nietzsche didn't just accept suffering, he praised it. He saw it as the crucible in which great souls are forged. He said, one must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. That chaos? It's your suffering, your heartbreak, fear, confusion, failure. It's the raw material of your becoming. Without it, you don't grow. You don't evolve. You don't transform. But let's not sugarcoat this. Suffering hurts. And in the moment it feels meaningless. You lose someone you love. You fail in front of a crowd. You're betrayed, rejected, dismissed. It's ugly, it's messy, and it doesn't come with a neat little moral. So how do we reconcile that kind of pain with the idea that it's good? That it's necessary? Here's where Nietzsche throws down the gauntlet. He doesn't say suffering is good because it's pleasant. He says it's good because it reveals who you are. Pain is a mirror. It strips away your illusions, your ego, your pretenses, and what's left? Your will, your drive, your truth. When everything else burns away, that's what remains. That's the core of you. Nietzsche calls this the will to power, not power over others, but power over yourself. The power to impose meaning on suffering and to turn pain into purpose. This isn't just philosophy. It's biology. It's life. Think about muscle growth. You lift weights, you tear muscle fibers, and your body rebuilds them stronger. That's suffering, but without it, you stay weak. Same goes for your mind, your character, your soul. No stress, no strength, no discomfort, no development, no failure, no wisdom.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
And yet, we live in a world obsessed with comfort, instant gratification, easy answers. Numb the pain, scroll away the boredom, medicate the anxiety. And look, I'm not judging. I've done it too. We all have. But here's the question. What if your suffering is trying to teach you something? What if it's not a roadblock, but a doorway? And what if every time you run from it, you walk away from your own becoming? Nietzsche challenges us to flip the script. Instead of asking, how do I avoid pain? We ask, what is this pain trying to teach me? That's not just a mindset shift, that's a revolution in how we live. Suddenly, discomfort becomes data, fear becomes feedback, suffering becomes signal. Let me ask you something deeply uncomfortable. What was the moment in your life where you suffered the most? Think about it. That time you were most broken, most lost, most afraid. Now ask yourself, who did you become because of it? What strength did it force you to develop? What illusions did it burn away? And would you really trade that growth for an easier life? Nietzsche believed that great individuals, those who leave a mark on the world, aren't the ones who avoid suffering. They're the ones who recycle it, who take the raw sewage of life and alchemize it into gold. He called this amor fati, the love of fate, not just accepting what happens to you, but loving it, embracing it, saying, this too is part of my story. This pain, this failure, this loss, it's mine, and I will make something beautiful from it. This is not about glorifying trauma. It's about reclaiming agency, about choosing to be the author of your own narrative. Because if suffering is inevitable, and it is, then the only question that matters is, what will you do with it? Will you let it break you, or will you let it build you? So here's our first challenge. The next time life hits you with something hard, don't flinch. Don't numb it. Sit with it. Ask it, what are you here to teach me? And listen. Because that voice, however faint, is the voice of your becoming. The furnace of the soul, why suffering creates strength, not weakness. Let's go deeper. If pain is the mirror, then suffering is the fire. It doesn't just reflect who you are, it refines you. We tend to think of suffering as something that breaks us. But what if it's the exact opposite? What if it's the thing that builds us? Not in spite of the agony, but because of it. Nietzsche didn't believe we should merely endure suffering. He believed we should transcend through it, or that we should create through it, that we should become worthy of it. And that's a radical idea because it gives suffering meaning. It transforms pain from a punishment into a process, but it means that our worst days aren't wasted. They're essential. They're the furnace in which our soul is forged. Think of any hero you admire, real or fictional. Now trace their story backward. You'll find a moment of darkness, and a crucible, an ordeal, a time when they were completely undone. That's not a coincidence. That's the pattern. The loss comes before the revelation, the failure before the greatness, the fire before the steel. Why? Because we don't grow in pleasure, we grow in pressure. It's in the furnace that we find out what we're made of. Nietzsche put it bluntly, what does not kill me makes me stronger. And while that line has been meme-ified to death, its original meaning is far deeper than we give it credit for. He wasn't saying pain is pleasant. He was saying it's transformative, that every blow we survive becomes part of our strength, that every scar becomes part of our armor. That survival itself is an act of creation. But here's the twist. Suffering doesn't automatically make you stronger, but it can also make you bitter, hollow, resentful. The fire can purify or it can consume. The difference is in how you respond. Do you collapse inward or do you expand? Do you curse the pain or do you use it? Do you run from the fire or do you walk into it eyes wide open? That's where the will to power comes back. Nietzsche believed that real strength isn't about domination. It's about integration, taking even the painful, the ugly, the tragic and folding it into your identity. But it means you don't reject your suffering. You own it. You turn it into fuel. You say, this happened, it hurt, and still I rise. Let me ask you something. What's the hardest truth you've had to accept? The one that gutted you, dismantled your worldview, or forced you to grow up faster than you were ready for. Now ask, what did it awaken in you? What strength did it summon? What part of you came online that wasn't there before? That's the power of the furnace. It doesn't just destroy, it awakens. But awakening isn't gentle. It's violent. It tears away illusions. It demands that we die to who we were so we can become who we're meant to be. That's why Nietzsche admired the figure of the Übermensch, the overman, or beyond man. Not a superhuman in the comic book sense, but a person who has mastered themselves, who has taken all their pain, confusion, and chaos and transcended it, not by escaping it, but by redefining it. And that's the secret. Suffering doesn't make you weak. Resisting suffering makes you weak. But pretending it shouldn't happen, numbing it, blaming others, that's what traps us in helplessness. But when we face it, really face it, we discover a power we didn't know we had. A power to recreate ourselves from the ashes, like a phoenix, like a god rising from dust. So here's the deeper challenge. Can you carry your suffering with dignity? Can you walk through fire without losing your heart? Can you look your pain in the eye and say, "You will not define me, you will refine me"? Don't waste your suffering. Don't bury it. Don't deny it. Let it become the raw material of your transformation. Because in that furnace, something holy happens. The self you were dies, but the self you were meant to be is born. Dancing with chaos, how embracing pain unlocks creative power. There's a hidden truth that most people never discover about suffering. It doesn't just build resilience. It doesn't just make you tough. At its deepest level, suffering is the birthplace of creativity. It's the spark that ignites the forge of the human spirit. And Nietzsche knew this. He saw that when we stop resisting the chaos of our lives, something miraculous begins to happen. We create. Not just art, not just beauty, but ourselves. We become creators of meaning. Pain breaks the pattern. It interrupts the sleepwalk of routine. And in that rupture, in that space between what was and what now hurts, the door to creativity opens. Why? It's day, dear. Because chaos demands a response. It forces us to construct something, a story, an idea, a symbol that helps us hold the weight of our experience. And that act of creation, that attempt to shape the formless, is the essence of the human spirit. Every poem, every painting, every song that ever touched your soul, they were born from someone else's pain, someone else's chaos. And in witnessing it, we remember that we are not alone. Nietzsche didn't just theorize this, but he lived it. His life was riddled with illness, isolation, and tragedy. He lost friends, lovers, health, and eventually his mind. And yet, in the midst of that torment, he wrote some of the most explosive, transformative philosophy the world has ever seen. He didn't wait for peace to write, he wrote from the storm. That's the mark of a soul that dances with chaos, not one that tames it, but one that learns to move with it, to find rhythm in the unpredictable. But here's the paradox. The more we try to avoid pain, the more powerless we become. But when we embrace it, when we step into it with curiosity and courage, we gain something no comfort zone can offer: originality. No one else can suffer exactly the way you do. And so no one else can create exactly what you can. That's your raw material, your fingerprint, your soul print. And when you honor it, when you use it, you turn chaos into order. You turn wounds into wisdom. Ask yourself, what has your pain created in you that nothing else could have? Maybe it's a new level of empathy, Maybe it's an idea, a mission, a form of expression. Maybe it's simply a deeper understanding of what it means to be alive. Whatever it is, it's yours, and it came not in spite of the suffering, but through it. Nietzsche challenged us to become the poets of our lives. That's not just about writing verses, it's about crafting meaning where none seems to exist. And let's be real, life doesn't hand you meaning. It gives you raw experience, some of it beautiful, much of it brutal. But the meaning, that's your job, that's your art, that's your fight, and it's in that fight that creativity is born. The universe doesn't reward comfort, it rewards courage, the courage to look into the abyss and not flinch. The courage to say, even here, especially here, I will create. That act of creation is what makes us human. It's what separates us from machines, from animals, from passivity. It's what allows us to take the darkness and not just survive it, but illuminate it. So here's the question: what are you creating with your chaos? Are you turning it into anger, blame, self-pity? Or are you turning it into strength, beauty, truth? Because you can, you really can. Your pain can become your palette, and your trauma can become your tapestry. But only if you choose to dance with it, to move with it, to transform it. Don't wait for the storm to pass. Step into it and start building. Paint something, write something, say something, be something that could only have emerged from the fire you walked through. Because when you do that, you're not just surviving, you're transcending. And that's where true freedom lives. The sacred yes, choosing meaning over numbness in a world that runs from pain. There comes a moment in every life when you stand at a crossroads, not of action, but of attitude. The world will tell you to turn away from pain, to numb it, minimize it, medicate it, scroll past it. We're conditioned to chase pleasure and avoid discomfort at all costs. But Nietzsche asks us to do something far more radical, to say yes to it all. Not just to the joys of life, but to the wounds. Not just to the triumphs, but to the tragedies. He called it the sacred yes, and in that yes lies the power to transform your existence. To say yes to life in its totality means to embrace the full spectrum of the human experience. It means looking at your suffering not as an error, not as something to be erased, but as a vital part of your becoming. This is not a passive acceptance. This is an active affirmation. A defiant, creative, soul-level yes that declares, even this has meaning. Even this has value. Even this is mine to use. But let's be honest, that's not easy. It's far easier to close off, to retreat into distraction, to live in half-light. But that path leads to numbness, and numbness is not peace, it's slow decay. You lose your edge, your fire, your sense of aliveness. You become a ghost in your own story, drifting from one dopamine hit to the next, never really touching the depth of who you are. That's not living, that's existing. Whereas Nietzsche demands more from us. He demands engagement. He demands intensity. He demands that we become worthy of our suffering by turning it into something sacred. This is where the real philosophical payoff comes. Nietzsche's entire worldview rests on the idea that meaning is not given, it's created. There is no divine blueprint, no pre-written script. Life is raw, chaotic, unpredictable. But in the middle of that chaos, we have one astonishing power, the power to choose our response. That choice, that sacred yes, is what makes us gods of our own existence. And here's the beautiful irony: the more we embrace suffering, the less it controls us. Pain loses its sting when it finds a purpose. When you say, "This is hard, but I will make it matter," you reclaim your agency. You become the author of your pain, not its victim. That's not just strength, that's freedom. The kind of freedom most people never taste because they're too busy running from the very thing that could set them free. Think about it. When were you most alive? Not just happy, not just entertained, but alive. It was probably a moment of risk, of vulnerability, of emotional exposure. Maybe it was heartbreak. Maybe it was standing up for something. Maybe it was falling apart and realizing you were still breathing. That's the sacred yes. That's what Nietzsche called becoming who you are. So here's the final question. What would your life look like if you said yes to it all? Not just the good days, but the grief. Not just the wins, but the wounds. Not just the laughter, but the loneliness. How deeply could you live? How fully could you love? How fearlessly could you create? This isn't a philosophy of despair. It's a philosophy of empowerment. It doesn't ask you to suffer for the sake of suffering. It invites you to redeem it, to find or forge meaning in the ashes, to become the kind of person who can look back on their pain and say, "That didn't destroy me. It defined me. It made me." Nietzsche doesn't want you to escape life. He wants you to embrace it. All of it, even the darkness. Especially the darkness. Because only when we say yes to the whole can we become whole ourselves. So go ahead, step into the fire. Love your fate. Say your sacred yes. And become the person you were always meant to be.